morning. Welcome to Glazing with Amaco. I'm Kara, and this morning we have a little bit more about the PCFluxes. I know a couple people have asked me about using them with the Celadons, and so I wanted to make sure that we had some information about them because I have done a little bit of testing, but not a lot. So what we normally do is use the Celadons as a base glaze and then layer with Potter's Choice glazes over. And so this, you can see, I'm going to go to my overhead. You can see, well, maybe not. We have a lot of sunlight coming in. You can see the Celadon Snow with honey flux over, and I only brought the honey flux down to about here, so it moved a little bit, but not a lot. You'd think that it would move a lot more. Hang on, I'm going to try to get this in focus a little bit more. And so what, it does not want to focus on that. Okay, fine. We'll come back down. So we only bring the top coat about 1/3 of the way down on the tubes with the Celadon. So the snow obviously kind of slowed down the honey flux. But it looks really nice, kind of the peachy flow over the white snow. I really like that. This I tried to do something different, and I thought that it would stay pretty stable and maybe even make kind of an oil spot effect. So in this cup, what I did, hi Christina, hi Robin, and hi Pat, oh, from Italy. Wow, it must be late. So what I did here is I put 3 coats of honey flux on this mug all the way up to the rim, which in my experience with using honey flux is not going to move very much. And then I put the Celadon Snow over all of that, and you can see I put the Celadon Snow even on the inside. And what I ended up with, and again, let me see if I can show you. I'm not sure if you'll see, but there's like an opalescent quality to the glaze. I think you can see a little bit. Hello, Evelyn. Early in the morning for you. So it made this beautiful opalescent quality, but the downside is I had to grind the whole foot of this mug because it had flowed all the way off the mug. So I'm going to do another piece, and I will show you all next week, and I'll post it online. But I'm going to do a similar kind of thing. This time I'm going to use Cirrus Flow, the Flux PCFlux 19 Cirrus Flow. And I do have, this form does have kind of a catch. Yeah, it dripped, Kathy, it dripped all over the shelf. I had to grind it down, and it was a big mess. It dripped here, 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 and here. The only part it didn't drip on was a little space here, and a little space here, and a little space here. All the rest of it dripped a lot. And it's the only reason I'm able to get it off is because I actually fire these on a piece of soft brick when I'm not sure if it's going to run, and that soft brick was toast. It was just a goner. You can even, I'm not sure if you can see, but I had to even grind the sides because the drips were so thick that it was a mess. Pat's asking, are Amaco's products sold in Europe, specifically Italy? And Pat, the best way to find a distributor is to go to our website, which is amaco.com, and go to the very bottom of the page, and you will see a tab that says dealers, and put in Italy. We do have at least one distributor in Italy, and I know we have a number of distributors in the EU that you can order from. So try that out. Oh, it's only 5:30 in Italy. I thought it was much later. I must be thinking of, we sometimes get people watching in Australia, and of course there it's pretty much the middle of the night. So, so I'm going to put, this has some lovely texture, so I was hoping to see some flow on here, but I'm going to have to be careful about it. Trying not to go further than halfway down on small pieces. Well, it's because it was layered and it was a lot of glaze. But when I put the snow on first and the honey flux on top, this was 3 coats of snow and 3 coats of honey flux, and it did not even come close to flowing off. But reversing that Celadon over the honey flux, clearly it really wanted to flow on there. Hello from Sun City Center Potter's Wheel Club. Hi, Sue. Is that in Florida, or is that in Southern California, or is it somewhere else? Those are the only Sun Cities I know about. Unless you're in the one that's in, is there a Sun City in South Africa? I thought there was a resort there. But, so there's my first coat of Cirrus Flow. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And I'm going to show you what Cirrus Flow looks like on dark clay, because I think this is really, really beautiful. Yeah, Pat, check that out. I'm sure that you can find Potter's Choice glazes, the Flux glazes. In Europe, it may not come from inside Italy. You might not be able to visit the store in person, but I know that we have distributors all over the continent. So this is 3 coats of Cirrus Flow on Kentucky Brown Bear, which is a black clay body, and this was fired to cone 5. And you can see it is, hi Peggy, in Florida. Ah, Sue, you're in, I'm sorry, Sue's in Florida, Peggy's in Pittsburgh. But you can see it does bring out the blue. I think that my color may be off on my overhead camera, so it's going to look a little bit more electric blue. But if you see the selfie, let's see, selfie camera, it is a beautiful light blue color. Lovely. It really brings, putting the PCFs on a dark clay really brings out the color. So if you're feeling like, oh, my Flux Blossom is a little bit kind of subtle, more subtle than I would like. I'd like it to be a little bit brighter. It will show the pink on a dark clay body. You'll have the dark clay body showing through where it breaks on the edges, but you'll also see the color really well. Clayton Pottery asks, do you have Cirrus Flow on a red? And I don't. I don't have a red clay body sample. I'll have to check on getting some red clays, because we do have our 77M terracotta that is a cone 5 terracotta. It's a sculpture, primarily a sculpture body. So I'm working on coat number 2 now of the Cirrus Flow. So I will check on the red clay, and we'll see if we can add a red clay to our testing for the new glazes. I do have some news for you all. Some of you may already know, but Amaco is releasing new colors in the Celadon Satin Matte and Velvet lines. We're really excited, and next week I will, during our Glazing with Amaco, I will have some sample tiles to show you colors. And I also want to compare them with some of the colors that we already have, because I know that it can be difficult when you see them by themselves to really appreciate how they look different from other colors. So I'm really excited. We have 4 new velvet colors, we have 5 new Celadon colors, and we have 6 new satin matte colors. And they're all really, really beautiful. I've been excited about these for quite some time. We had to delay releasing them a little bit. But we have wonderful new glazes planned for you, and these, I think that you will love adding them to your palette. So, Celadons, as Christina says, Celadon and satins are my favorite. The Mudworks sample was fired horizontally. No, this was not fired horizontally. This was fired vertically. It was fired upright. You can actually see how it pooled at the bottom. So Sarah's asking about the how this was fired. So it does run a little bit. Sarah, if you've used the Honey Flux, the Cirrus Flow is just the same as Honey Flux but blue, and so it's going to not run any more than that. And we did not do anything to make it stop. It just kind of stopped right there. I actually found, here's another sample on the Kentucky Mudworks Brown Bear, and you can see how I did this in a straight line, more or less, and it kind of pools, it makes a bulge, but it does not flow right off or down. So do try it out. And I don't have samples with these on speckled buff, but all of our samples online are on white clay. So if you see a sample on our website that is not otherwise marked, that is white clay. Evelyn says, come on, you're costing me money. I'm sorry. Just love bringing you all the colors and making everything beautiful. So you're just going to have to glaze more, Evelyn. Pat says the only store in Italy is only about an hour away. Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that, Pat, that you can find a store near you. And Evelyn says, new Celadons, looking forward to seeing. They're lovely. I can't wait to show you. So I'm going to get one last coat of Cirrus Flow on here. Then I'm going to let it dry and put some snow over it. I think what I'm going to do is graduated coats. So I'll take one coat down to the bottom, fingers crossed, and the next coats will only go a little ways down so that there's less risk of flowing right off of the pot. And then next week I will show you how this came out, because I'm going to fire it and see if I can get those beautiful results again that I really want those that iridescent look. But I wanted to try this with Cirrus Flow because I wanted to see if it would make that iridescent look with the blue glaze. I thought that would be nice. Yeah, Celadons, satin mattes, and velvets. So keep an eye out. You will see those next week. Very, very exciting. So I've got to wait a little bit for this to dry. And in the meantime, do you guys have any questions for me, since watching glaze dry can be tremendously boring? We have a lot of questions about heat work, and I know for a lot of our listeners in Europe that a lot of people fire by temperature rather than by cone. And the difficulty with that is that cones don't measure temperature. What cones measure is heat work, which is the combination of temperature and time. If it helps to think of it like cooking, you can cook chicken, for example, really fast and really hot. Or you can cook it really slow and really low. And at the end, you still have cooked chicken. But the temperatures you're cooking at are not the same. And so the speed of how quickly you fire affects, so the ramp speed, the speed of increase in your kiln, really affects what your final temperature needs to be. Now, computerized kilns in the US fire by cone, but they have a computer that actually calculates the heat work needed. So they fire to a temperature based on the ramp speed. If you are firing just to a temperature, how quickly you get to that temperature is something that you need to control and keep track of. If you look at a cone chart, they consider fast to be 150 degrees Celsius an hour. And I know that a lot of people who are firing in the EU fire a lot faster than that. Some fire 200 degrees an hour, and some just set their kiln to 999 an hour, and so it goes up as fast as possible, and we don't even know how quick that is. But you need to keep in mind that the faster your kiln is going, the hotter it needs to go, and if you're doing it slowly, you're probably zooming right. If you're doing a slow firing but to a high temperature, you are getting a much greater degree of heat work than what is recommended. I'm going to work on a chart to kind of describe this, but there are kiln charts, Orton cone charts online, so if you are wanting to know what cone, when we talk about cone 5 to 6 for our glazes, you can go online and search for an Orton cone chart in centigrade or Celsius, and it will give you the ramp speed and that final temperature. Yes, Pat, they're going to talk about centigrade in Europe because they don't fire by cone in Europe. And the problem is that, like I said, you can fire very fast to a high temperature or very slowly to a low temperature. If you're firing very slow to a higher temperature, you are getting a much higher degree of heat work. So just the temperature alone will not tell you how that piece was fired. You need to know how fast it was fired as well. So you can talk to your teacher about what their firing schedule is, and that will help you to understand, because a lot of these glazes will change, and some of them will run a lot if you overfire them. So I think, yeah, it's firm enough now where I can put some glaze on it. I'm going to start on the inside. Hi, Barbara. Can you please show the iridescent piece you mentioned? Yes, once I get this coat on, I will show that again. And the piece that I'm talking about is Honey Flux first, and then Celadon Snow over it. And it developed a slightly iridescent sheen, just a little bit. And it was very lovely, but it also ran terribly. Yes, Allison points out, and yes, you are absolutely right, Allison, the ramp speed only matters in the final 2 hours or so of the firing. It really only matters in the final 100 to 200 degrees of your firing. It does not matter for the rest of the firing. So it's just that final ramp. So I'm going to do this one just to here and let that dry. Sure I got all the spots. Here, go back to my overhead so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, Barbara, let's see if I can show this. So it's hard to see because of the daylight coming through the window, but there is an iridescent sheen on this mug. You might be able to see it. But you can also see it ran a lot. This is all where it was ground off, those areas, because it just completely ran right off of the pot. But it's really beautiful. So we'll see if I can recreate some of that without the without it running right off the pot. There we are. Okay, so this one, it needs to dry a little bit more. It's probably going to take a little while. So I'm going to do this coat here. I'll do the next coat a little bit lower. And then the last coat I'll go all the way to the bottom, but just one coat. Just one coat all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to fire this. Should I fire this to cone 5 or cone 6? I think I really want to fire it to cone 6 just to kind of push the boundaries and see how much running I do get. You're welcome, Barbara. I thought it was really lovely too. It was just a lot of work to grind off that foot and not my preferred way to make pots. So I want to see if I can get this a little bit better this time. But when you use it in the reverse, if you're putting the flux glaze on top of the Celadon, it doesn't move a lot. It moves a little, but it doesn't move a lot. So you can kind of, you can see from my tile earlier, this was honey flux down to about here, and it really didn't move much past that. When I've used the midnight run, it barely moved at all. And when I used it over a Celadon, it stayed right where I put it. And this is a kind of wobbly little tile. So this tile, Ilona is asking, what glaze is this? This is snow and then honey flux on top. And the mug was honey flux with snow on top, and it ran a lot. And now I'm using Cirrus Flow with snow over it and trying to get less flow, but still with the iridescence. So Robin says, would be interesting to see how it responds on a flat surface, maybe more pearl. It might be, I don't know. I don't have a spare tile around. So I guess that I'm going to have to do one when I get back in the studio. Oh, wait. I do have a spare tile. It's a clean tile, too. It's always exciting. So depending on how you layered it, Emily asks, depending on how you layered it, one was more runny than the other. Yes, that's exactly right, Emily. And Christina says it looks like it has mother of pearl on it. It does. So one way, layered one way, it is very iridescent looking, almost like mother of pearl, and very, very runny. And then layered the other way, it doesn't do much of anything. However, if you are familiar with, iron luster and oatmeal, if you've ever tried it with the iron luster over the oatmeal, it's just brown. It doesn't matter how you apply it, it's just brown. But if you do one heavy coat of oatmeal over the iron luster, you'll get purple. So which way you layer the glazes absolutely makes a difference. It's not just the glazes interact, but they actually interact based on which one was on first. I don't really understand why, but it does. It does make a difference. But I suppose if I was making a shepherd's pie and I put the potatoes on the bottom and the meat and veg on top, it would come out different than it's supposed to as well. Probably wouldn't, it would taste the same. I don't know. I'm not going to try that. So I have 3 thin coats on here. I'm going to slather a little extra on of my Cirrus Flow. So now that you guys have been using the PCFs for a little while, do any of you have favorites with the PCFs? You know, do you like Cirrus Flow better than Honeydew, or do you like River Birch better than Flux Blossom, or Midnight Run over Moss Mist? Do you have a favorite? Robin says it's the magic of Amaco. Yes, it is. So I have, come on, PCF 19, yes, PCF 19. My under glaze applicator doesn't want to work today. I think I'm going to have to use a pencil. Easier anyway. I don't have to wait for it to dry. PCF 19 C10 over it, and I'll fire it to cone 6. Kyle says, I love Honeydew over Purple Crystal. And Emily says, I've only tried Midnight Run and Flux Blossom so far. I love Flux Blossom. I wanted to use it with Weeping Plum, but haven't had much success with that combo yet. What happens if you use Cirrus Flow and Honey Flux together? Well, Kathy, the Cirrus Flow and Honey Flux have the same base, so you would have color differences, but they wouldn't run more unless you put like 3 coats of each on. They shouldn't run more. They shouldn't really interact much other than be a slightly different color. You would have probably a lighter blue than Cirrus Flow. But that's about it. Kind of like if you mix Celadons, you'll get a different color, but it won't behave differently from the original glaze. You won't get like really wild effects. Thank you, Emily, for joining us. Also going to write on the bottom of this one so I know that it's the same thing. There we go. So that tells me it's Snow over Cirrus Flow fired to cone 6. Kyle says, I found that Midnight Run over Purple Crystal did not get the blues I expected. Likely needed more Midnight Run. It's possible. I would have expected a little bit more blue. The Midnight Run can be more black than blue in certain circumstances, so that might have had something to do with it as well. Hard to say. I think this is going to take a little while to dry. And it is noon, so like I said, I'm going to apply one more coat to this and bring it all the way down. I will take a photo before I fire it. And then I'm going to apply 3 coats to this tile and fire it horizontally, cone 6. And I will show those next week. And next week I'm going to have tiles and pieces glazed with the new satin mats and new Celadons and new velvets. So I hope that you will join me, and I will see you next week. Thank you all for taking part in my glaze adventures here at Glazing with Amaco. That's still too wet, Kara. You can't put another coat on there yet. And have a wonderful week and happy glazing.